You're not. Even if you'd like to be. To them, you're just a freak. Like me. They need you right now. But when they don't, they'll cast you out. Like a leper. See, their morals, their code. It's a bad joke.
I like my whole team, actually. I love my team. I'm just trying to do something exciting by having a team with all really bad people. I just want to feel cool and dangerous and...
Oh my God.
George 190, baby.
Welcome back into episode 297 of the Dore Report on a frigid and cold Monday evening, January 6th, 2025. I am Will Byram, joined as always by my co-host Trevor Hewlin, aka Hack Squat Jim Duggan. Here at the Dore Report, we are presented by 615 Collectibles. If you're into sports cards or sports memorabilia, check out 615 Collectibles on eBay. Items include NFL team packs, individual cards, graded cards, and more. You can find them by searching in the eBay bar 615 Collectibles, or you can go directly to their eBay store at www.ebay.com/str/615 Collectibles. Trevor, we have a pretty locked and loaded episode 297. Yep. A lot of information to pass along.
A 7+1.
A lot of questions to answer. A lot of movement in the Vanderbilt sports and media coverage
portal.
A lot of portal movement.
A lot of portal movement.
A lot of portal movement, you could say, not just on the teams, not just on the football field, but in the media coverage as well. We will hit on a lot of that, but to cut through the chase, and before we get into all the details, the Dore Report, as we have announced on Twitter and announced on the Rivals site, is officially a part of the Rivals Publisher Network. We are extremely excited and grateful for the opportunity and cannot wait for what 2025 has in store for the Dore Report and all of you out there listening. So this is our first podcast officially announcing that transition. Chris Lee and VandySports.com have moved on. We'll be joining Robbie Weinstein at 24/7 Sports, and we are more than happy to take over the coverage at Rivals, and we will continue that going. Thank you to Chris, everyone at VandySports.com for the incredible foundation they have built, and we will continue to honor their legacy by bringing TDR listeners and their existing listener base and board members the best Vanderbilt coverage possible anywhere on the internet. So, Trevor, we are ecstatic. I'm ecstatic. It's an incredible step up and opportunity for TDR, and we are thrilled with how it has gone so far.
Yeah.
And we are thrilled to continue to surprise people with how great our coverage will be.
Yeah, it's and first and foremost, man, we want to shout out, as Will said, we want to shout out Rivals for giving us this opportunity. This is, who would have thought that a couple of just dudes in their 20-somethings just chit-chatting about Vanderbilt would have this opportunity. We are incredibly grateful to Rivals, but also, and most importantly, we got to shout out the weekly listeners, everybody that interacts with us on Twitter, reacts with us on the pod, Instagram, comes to tailgates. I said it in my little introductory post, and I mean it. This would not be possible without you guys who have supported us through some bad athletics. like if you guys would have stopped listening and just been like, I'm done with this, I would have totally understood, because to be quite frank, and we've talked about it before, last year, there were a lot of pods that we just had to really convince ourselves, we have to record, and we would go for 45 minutes and it was brutal, but you guys stuck with us along the way. So none of this would be possible without you guys. And we want to thank you guys a lot.
And this is the complicated part at the beginning. So now that we've gotten our initial thank yous to everybody that's listened before, week in, week out, thank you guys so much. We probably have a group of brand new listeners to the Dore Report. From the existing subscribers to Vanderbilt Rivals. Thank you to those that have stuck with us through this transition.
Oh, my word.
Thank you to those who have continued to post on the boards, get to know us. You will continue to get to know us as we continue to be more active. After we do this, this is literally just the intro. Normally the intro is not this long. So if this is your first time listening, usually the intro is real quick. Boom, boom, boom. What's been going on? Then we get to segment one. So we're kind of having to balance because there are people that know us and there are people that don't. So in segment one, we're going to do a little bit of a really quick introduction to who we are, as well as who our writers on the staff are. If you've listened to TDR week in, week out, you might be able to fast forward over this part because you already know us. You know what we're about.
You know the TDR lore.
You know the TDR lore, but we'll just give a little background on who we are, how we got here. And then we will get to the actual Vanderbilt news that we cover and why we were brought on to Rivals to provide coverage. Not to just tell you about us. Vanderbilt had their first game of SEC play, as well as their final game. What are you
I'm going to turn that off while you're gone.
As well as Vanderbilt's final game of non-con play. And then we have the beef of this episode. Like, this might be a very long episode, so be it. Blake Fromang, member of the TDR staff, as well as former Vanderbilt offensive line and tight end legend, will be joining us after the TDR cocktail break to assign individual position grades and overall recap the 2024 Vanderbilt football season. And what a season it was. So we have all that coming up on episode 297 and much more. But before we do all that, or get to all that, don't forget to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at the Dore Report. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Our podcast is available on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, and Google Podcasts. And while you're at it, give our podcast 5 stars and a review on iTunes. It's now time for segment 1.
The team, go sports!
All right, can you just explain what's going on here?
Thank you, I have no idea.
I'm not eating this.
Sports! So happy with my daughter. She loves sports and she loves broccoli, and that's why we're here.
Welcome back into episode 297 of the Dore Report, our first episode of the 2025 year and our first episode as part of the Rivals Publisher Network. Trevor, we talked about it in the intro, but I did not mention anywhere where people could go and subscribe to our new Rivals site. So if you were interested, we have message boards behind a paywall where you can directly interact with me and Trevor. There will be interesting content things that we are doing behind that paywall, as well as interesting interactions and first priority things that you will be able to have access to behind that paywall. We have that link on our Twitter, or you can just go to Vanderbilt, or is it Rivals?
It's Vanderbilt.Rivals.
At Vanderbilt.Rivals.com. You can go directly there, subscribe. There is currently a promo code, all capital letters, no spaces, Dore Report. That will give you a 30-day free trial to test out the site, see what you think, see if you like it. You can cancel at any time in that free trial period. You won't be charged. Please don't cancel. We would really appreciate it if you didn't. Stick with us. But the reason that I'm saying this early, because I forgot to mention it, there are a lot of people, and we appreciate every single person that has reached out and said this: how do we support TDR?
Yeah.
How do we help you guys out? We hear that a lot at the tailgates, people asking where to Venmo, who to Venmo, whatever. This is how you support TDR now. I kept telling people to wait. There were things working. This is how you support TDR.
Yeah.
Go to Vanderbilt.Rivals.com. Subscribe to the Vanderbilt site. You can use that code Dore Report, no spaces, like I said, for a 30-day free trial. But this is how you support us.
Yeah.
So any more subscribers, any subscribers we gain, more money that we have, just is going to amplify our ability to cover Vanderbilt.
Yeah.
We already have some incredible plans. This feels like a good time. If you're a regular listener, you know me and Trevor, you can fast forward past this.
Yeah.
But I introduced myself briefly on a Rivals post that I made right when we took over the site. My name is Will Byram. I am the co-host / owner of TDR. My name is on the contracts on the Rivals stuff. So a little bit of pressure on my head, just a little bit of background. Born and raised Nashville area, Old Hickory, Mount Juliet, Tennessee, to be more specific. Grew up going to Mount Juliet Elementary, Mount Juliet Middle, Mount Juliet High School. Played baseball and basketball and some football growing up. Played basketball, varsity basketball in high school and college. Went to Tennessee Tech University, got undergraduate degrees in finance and marketing, then went and got my MBA from Tennessee Tech as well, with a concentration in finance. I then went on to work at UBS in their middle office as an integrated middle office specialist in U.S.-based cash equities. Then I moved on, and I'm currently working in corporate finance as a senior financial analyst / data analyst at a company called SSA Marine. They work in stevedoring. It's about as interesting as it sounds, but I look at a lot of Excel spreadsheets. As far as the Dore Report goes, that's kind of my background personally. Huge Vanderbilt fan my entire life. My grandfather was a Vanderbilt fan. My dad is a Vanderbilt fan. I am a Vanderbilt fan. My brother is a Vanderbilt fan. It runs in the genes. As far as the Dore Report, I started doing the Dore Report with Billy in 2020, peak COVID time. Started doing it. I had just graduated with my MBA, was trying to apply for jobs, but everywhere was frozen. So I was like, I'm a bit of a busy bee. So I was like, you know what? We'll start doing this podcast. And me and Billy started doing it. Then Trevor joined TDR, I think, in 2022.
2022.
In 2022, and this version of TDR was kind of born after Billy left about a year and a half or more ago to join Chris with Vandy Sports. So that's the background of kind of how I got here. Very broad. I don't think I'm 27 currently.
Yeah.
If anybody wanted to know my age, turning 28 this year.
Yeah. Handsome.
Something like that. Yeah, Trevor.
Handsome,
gas me up.
funny,
Not,
smart.
Not quite as good of a mustache as my co-host Trevor Hewlin.
He's got a great beard, though.
But
excellent jawline,
there
some
we
would
go.
say.
Some could say. I don't think so, but here we go. Trevor.
Notorious Twitter poster, Hack Squad Jim Duggan. That is me on Twitter. Grew up a Vandy fan, similar to Will. My granny was a Vandy fan, so my dad was a Vandy fan, so here I am. Grew up in North Nashville area. Went to undergrad Austin P. Currently at Lipscomb, get my master's. Graduate in the spring. Fingers crossed, God willing. Joined TDR in 2022. I messaged the account, and all I want to do is write long-form content about Vanderbilt athletics. Did that. Wrote about a lot of bad football losses. Got brought on the week before the Kentucky game to where they had that magical win in Lexington. And I've just been a part ever since. So diehard Vanderbilt fan, advocate for the Vanderbilt fandom and the Vanderbilt fan community. And yeah, that's really it. I'm the board czar I'm the board mod. Shout out to everybody on the board, by the way, who is offered to be mods. I have not forgot to add you guys. I swear to God, I know it's been. I'm like, I'll do it. I promise I'm going to do it. But thank you guys for your help on the board, by the way.
Yeah, Trevor will be primarily on the boards. He's in charge of the boards. I'm, of course, very active on there. Most of the people that are on our staff that I will get to in a second are active on there as well. But Trevor's primarily king of the boards. That's what we're naming him, Board Czar.
Board Czar.
Benevolent dictator of the boards, whatever you want to call it. To get to the rest of our staff, and please correct me if I forget any names here.
Yeah.
There's no need to introduce Blake Fromang, our alleged attorney. He will be on later on episode 297. I will let him introduce himself. But to get to some of our writers. So Brian Carlson has already put out some great content.
Yeah.
Everyone right now that is not me and Trevor is currently listed as a contributor on the website. Brian will likely be updated to senior writer.
Yeah.
He has been with TDR since the beginning, writing incredible content. Since before and after we changed kind of formats of how we do things. Brian is incredible.
Yeah.
We'll continue to put out incredible content across all sports.
Truly like a gifted writer.
Very
gifted.
good writer. Then we'll move on to Alex Kurbagov,
Yeah.
Current Vanderbilt student.
Boots on the ground, Alex.
Boots on the ground, Alex. Will be attending. I think Trevor is in the works right now, getting him
getting him
credentialed for the baseball season.
Yep.
Alex will be covering on the beat.
On the beat,
we'll be covering Vanderbilt baseball. Alex also does an incredible job writing our women's basketball content.
Yeah.
A lot of that. He doesn't exclusively do that, but does a lot of the great women's basketball content, as well as our game day threads on our Behind Closed Doors premium member forum on our Vanderbilt Rivals site. Then we will move on to George Barclay.
Boston George.
He will be doing, we'll say, general writing
Yeah.
and content for TDR, not necessarily any specific recaps or previews. But recently, George released an article called Vandervillains, the top 10 villains in Vanderbilt athletics history. Got some mixed reviews.
Some people were like, how could you forget this person?
Some people loved it. Some people hated it. But overall, it got people talking. That's the type of content that George will be doing, very active on the boards. Then we have Miller McKee, also known as Chef Miller, of
Lot
course,
2 Lizard.
the benevolent dictator czar of our TDR tailgates, is also writing Vanderbilt basketball previews and recaps for us, men's and women's. Should also be doing some baseball content for us as well. Jacob Scholl, cannot forget Scoliosis. The Scholl's six-pack will be returning during football season, where Scholl picks 6 keys to the matchup of the week. Scholl will be producing content for us across all sports, specifically football player profiles, recruiting. He just put out a player profile on CJ Hurd, FAU transfer safety. And then we have, I'm forgetting someone.
Jalen?
Then we have Jalen.
Jalen.
Jalen is Jalen. If you're not familiar with Jalen Merricks, then you have not been following TDR long. Jalen is Jalen. Jalen is, we'll call him a marketing specialist for the Dore Report. He's just the man.
He really is a mad scientist, like just a genius, some would say, at getting clicks, at getting content.
Yeah, so Jalen, we don't know if Jalen's going to be doing a lot of writing. Jalen is, he might take some of his talents from Twitter onto the boards. We'll see. But Jalen's true talents are shown on Twitter.
Yeah.
When he gets to interact with opposing fan bases. So I think that runs us through everyone on our staff currently. That is it for now. Blake is the only one I didn't give an intro for.
Yeah.
He will be giving that himself. We are maybe going to be looking to add one or two more riders. We will see how it goes. But for right now, that is the team at TDR. We think it's an incredibly strong team, a lot of passion. There will be continuously updated content, and it should be a fun ride. But the thing we want to assure people that listen to TDR, not a damn thing is changing as far as this podcast is concerned. That was my main question of concern when I initially was presented with this opportunity is, have you listened to our podcast? We are fans, of course, and his only, the only concern for Rivals was, can we be objective? Absolutely. I believe we can be fully objective, but nothing is going to change with how we cover and analyze Vanderbilt sports.
Yeah.
We are objective. We always have been, and we just don't hide the fact that we are fans. We are happy when they win. We are sad when they lose, but that does not affect our ability to analyze this team objectively.
Yeah, and I think, too, knowing, and we've talked about this off pod, we are very open with our biases, and we've been very forthcoming on every pod and on Twitter and anytime somebody interacts with us. So I think people know how we skew, and so whenever you do know that, you're much easier to tell, okay, you're able to read between the lines, per se.
And we'll be able to discuss this a lot more. This is going to be a really long episode because this is a very key episode for us in our season recaps. I'd love to discuss this more on our plans, and we will continue to discuss our plans for content, get feedback from the board, answer questions and general things like that. Actually, after the TDR cocktail break, we have some questions from the board that I think maybe we should answer, or should we answer some of those now?
Yeah, we can answer them on pod. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. Let me pull up. There were only a couple that I saw beforehand, and then we will quickly hit on the LSU recap. Trevor, there it is. Okay, Trevor posted recording pod tonight. There were a couple questions, nothing major. We should have planned this better.
Two of them I did answer. The Big Pete answer.
Okay, somebody asked what. Okay, we're not going to do this right now. But in the future, we are going to, before each pod, ask what questions do you have for us? If you are a premium subscriber to Vanderbilt.rivals.com, then your questions will be answered first. Similar to talking with TDR, but it will just be every single episode we will do that moving forward. So now that we have that out there, we can do that.
Yeah, and similar with Spaces too. We'll post questions to the board. Premium members, their questions get asked first, but don't worry if you are in the Spaces, your question will get answered.
Yeah, and we're trying to make the absolute minimal amount of content behind a paywall. I personally just don't like that. But just keep in mind, we are keeping a majority of content not behind a paywall in hopes that listeners to TDR will understand this is how you support us.
Yeah.
How we are going to improve our content is by more people subscribing. The boards will get better. Everything will get better. We just need you guys that are currently listening to this to help us out. We've never asked for money from anyone. We will continue not to ask for money.
Yeah, we will never ask
anyone.
But
subscribe to Rivals. It's an incredible site, incredible content, an incredible team of writers that deserves more eyes on their writing.
Absolutely.
So that's the last thing. We will continue to talk about what we have planned, but we have a basketball game to very quickly recap. And then we have the full 2024 season to recap and give grades on. So this basketball recap is also not going to be indicative of how in detail a majority of our recaps will be. But Vanderbilt had their SEC opener, their opening game of SEC play on the road at LSU in Baton Rouge. Vanderbilt went down there and won 80-72. What an incredible debut for Mark Byington in SEC play. I wrote a quick write-up, a quick recap of the game. Nothing in super detail, posted the box score, but there was a specific line in the second half that I said, LSU's G. Bailey hit 2 free throws, went up 56-55, and then A.J. Hoggard took over.
Yeah.
A.J. Hoggard, I think, was the story of this game. The last 6 to 7 minutes of that game was absolutely a maestro, was in full control of that game. The experience, the Power 4 playing experience, high major playing experience showed through for A.J. Hoggard. So a great win to start the Mark Byington era. I have to add in, because I am wet blanket Will, LSU, probably one of the 2 or 3 worst teams in the SEC, but still, as long as you can be a middle of the pack to slightly below middle of the pack team in the SEC, you might be able to make the NCAA tournament that way. So a great way to start SEC play for Vanderbilt.
And I will be, I guess, warm blanket Trevor. That counts as a quad 1 win because they are a quad 2 team. Win on the road, that's a quad 1 win. So that is another quad 1 win for the Vanderbilt Commodores. You shouted out A.J. Hoggard. I agree. I think he was the star of that game, but also somebody who had their best game thus far this season, Jalen Carey. That felt like the Jalen Carey coming out party. I thought he was spectacular. I thought he was a presence that Vanderbilt has desperately needed down low, and he was able to provide that. Once again, I'll go ahead and get this out early. Something that's still concerns me is, man, free throw shooting is not great. And free throw shooting, they won. Free throw shooting will win or lose you ball games. Like we saw that last year. Free throw shooting will win or lose you ball games. Vanderbilt has to improve in that, especially if this game was a little bit closer. Like, it could have come down to free throw shooting, and we won't get much in Mississippi State, but that's going to be that ball game is going to be tough as hell, and that's probably going to come down to the line.
Yeah, Blake is probably asking, where the hell are these guys? He was supposed to join about 5 minutes ago, and we're not even close done to recapping this game, but we will try our best to speed through it. From the free throw line, Vanderbilt as a team shot 66%, 16 of 24 from the line. That's a little bit skewed and looks a little bit better because to close out the game, Jason Edwards hit 4 straight free throws.
Yeah.
To make that look a little bit better as a team, Vanderbilt shot 8 of 26 from the three-point line, 30.8%, and shot 43.8% from the field as a team. Standouts in the box score, A.J. Hoggard led the team in scoring with 17, as well as 4 assists, 6 of 14 shooting, 2 of 5 from 3. Jason Edwards, only 12 points in the game, 2 of 9 from the field, 1 of 3 from 3, 7 of 7 from the free throw line. I bring up Jason Edwards first because he went down with an injury.
Yeah.
In the first half, took a knee to the quad on an offensive foul from LSU. I think he'll be okay. I tweeted out or I put on the board, if you have ever played basketball, even at the Y, taking a knee to the quad, it just hurts.
Yeah.
And that's what it looked like. No knee twist. He was back in the game later, played through the end of the game, but was clearly uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Some clear discomfort. It wouldn't shock me if he's not 100% or playing limited minutes against Mississippi State.
Yeah. I reached out to some people at Vanderbilt, didn't really get an answer back on his status. I know the SEC availability report comes out tonight while we're recording this pod, so we will know after we record this pod. But I do think it's interesting. I think if he was not going to play tomorrow, Vanderbilt would not be a favorite tomorrow, which also baffles me. That line makes no sense to me. You're the gambling guy. I love the Dores. Them being a favorite, 1.5 point favorite, makes 0 sense to me.
Yeah, you're jumping a little bit ahead of me, but I'll run through the box score really quick. Edwards had 12. MJ Collins Jr. had 14 points on 5 of 6 shooting. Jalen Carey had a hell of a game, 6 of 12 from the field, 14 points, 8 rebounds. Devin McLaughlin had a good game, 7 points, 10 rebounds. Tyler Nickel, 11 points, 3 of 6 from the three-point line. Tyler Tanner, no points, 0 of 4 from the field. 1 steal, no turnovers still, but Tanner looked like a freshman for the first time. And that was something that we didn't talk as much basketball as I'd wanted to previewing this team.
Yeah.
I loved what I've seen out of Tanner in non-conference play. Absolutely loved it. I think he will play significantly less minutes as SEC play continues, and I think he will look significantly more like a freshman.
Yeah.
His size issues are going to become more prevalent. He needs to put on some weight. The ability to get those steals on those kind of, let's say, lazy passes, there's not as many of those anymore. And the game just speeds up.
Yeah.
So I think you saw the rotation tighten down a bit already this game from Byington. I think that they're going to just rotate 8 to 9 guys, mainly 8 guys, if you exclude Tanner as the season goes on. And he is a freshman.
Yeah, it's kind of expected.
I think you found a little bit of fool's gold with him. Yeah. I'm not saying he's never going to contribute. I think he will still see the floor and do good things in occasional games, but he's not a guy that game in, game out you're going to count on. He's just not. You're going to have to count on Jason Edwards, A.J. Hogarth, Jalen Carey, McLaughlin, Nickel. Those are the guys, M.J. Collins Jr. coming off the bench. Those are the guys you got to count on when it comes to conference play. So shout out to Vanderbilt for winning. They certainly didn't shoot the ball spectacularly well, but that's the one you've got to win. To start out, there are not many winnable games in your SEC conference schedule, and this is one you could have highlighted that said this one's winnable.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
So a hell of a way to start, but I think going into this, LSU is number 57 in KenPom. Vanderbilt is number 50. Vanderbilt has a bit of a step up in competition next. Mississippi State at home. Mississippi State currently ranked 14th in the AP poll. I believe 16th in KenPom currently. They are as well 13-1, coming off a 1-0 SEC start. Miller McKee wrote a good preview article. If you want the details of that game and some of the details of Mississippi State, we won't go into too great of detail on this because we do have our season recap and grades we really need to get to for football. But Vanderbilt opened up as a 1.5-point favorite at home over Mississippi State. I did not expect that.
Makes no sense.
I thought Vanderbilt would be a 3.5 to 5.5 point underdog, even though they are at home.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of questions. Are we missing something with a Mississippi State player being out? Or is Vegas just overcorrecting and saying this Vanderbilt team is damn good? I don't know, but this line is very surprising to me, and it intrigues me to watch this matchup tomorrow. This will be a great measuring stick game for Vanderbilt.
Yeah. And like you said, this is going to be a dogfight. Like, Mississippi State is a very good basketball team. I watched their game against South Carolina. They made a good South Carolina team look like a JV team. Mississippi State turns it over at an incredibly low clip, probably one of the lowest in the nation, if I believe so. So they play very smart basketball, good shooting team, good down low. It's going to be a battle. It's going to be a battle. They're really good on defense. The one thing that I'm looking forward to the most is how does Vanderbilt respond in transition defense against this Mississippi State basketball team. I think if they can respond well, and once again, this is pointing out the obvious, if they can respond well, I like their odds. But I think this is going to be a really, really, really big test for Vanderbilt.
Yeah, Mississippi State alongside Vanderbilt, both of these teams are top 10 in turnover percentage on offense. So both of these teams take care of the basketball. This will be a good measuring stick. Yeah. I'm just going to keep saying there's a lot to learn about this Vanderbilt team in the first 5 games. I posted that on the Rivals board on vanderbilt.rivals.com. I posted, you will learn there's a lot of fun in speculation. Yeah. But you will learn everything you need to know about this Vanderbilt basketball team in the first 5 games of SEC play.
I totally agree.
And so far in game 1, they passed with flying colors in my eyes. They passed non-conference play with flying colors. And these next 4 games are going to tell you even more as the competition gets even a little bit better in SEC play. So we have Blake joining us after the TDR cocktail break to do our full Vanderbilt football season recap and position grades. So everybody out there, if you're a regular listener, you know what's up next. If you're not, welcome to your first TDR cocktail break. So grab yourself a cold one or a warm beverage, and we will be right back after the TDR cocktail break. Welcome back into episode 297 of the Dore Report, as we have an additional guest joining episode 297 to help us recap the 2024 Vanderbilt football season and assign grades to individual position groups. That very special guest is former Vanderbilt offensive line legend and tight end legend,
I was going to say.
And allegedly the Dore Report's attorney, as well as new contributor staff member, Blake Fromang. Blake, thank you for joining.
Appreciate y'all having me. Been keeping y'all out of jail since 2022. It's nice to finally get my name on something with you guys other than defending a lawsuit. And it'd also be nice to get y'all's name on my check to pay my bills that you owe me. But you know what? Free legal advice. So I'm getting some pro bono out of this.
Yeah, this is like legal aid. You're our legal aid attorney.
I am.
And we appreciate that. And if you're waiting on that check, it's going to be quite a while. So I hope you
got that Rivals money.
Yeah, I hope you have a good record-keeping system. Blake is also part of our TDR staff. I gave an introduction.
Yeah?
Blake did not hear any of it, but I gave an introduction to every single member of the staff except for Blake, because I said Blake deserves / needs no introduction / Blake will want to introduce himself. So Blake, give an update to everyone out there that is listening for the first time. Who are you? What do you bring to the table? Sell yourself to the people, Blake.
All right, Blake Fromang, former player, as they hit on earlier, all-star at tight end. I got to line up against Mississippi State at wide receiver one play, and the cornerback looked up at me like, "What the hell's going on?" as he was looking at my knee braces. So I sparked a lot of fear, but now as a lawyer, I spark joy. No, I'm just kidding. It's more fear. So what I bring to the table is, I watch offensive line play. I watch the games. I'll let you guys know my thoughts on it. And really what I bring to the team is keeping everyone out of jail for the most part. So if you think of an idea and you're like, hey, is this legal? Just tweet at me or say something to me. Don't listen to these guys here. Just ask me and I'll probably, tell you no, but we'll go from there. So happy to be here.
Yes, Blake has done a great job keeping us out of jail as we are sitting here still hosting a podcast. So thank you for that, Blake. But Blake does provide an insight into offensive line play, which
tight end play
we have made no secret of is our weak point of understanding. And I think most people that did not play offensive line, you can understand what a cover 3 is. Yeah. You can understand what a cover 2 is. You can understand the route tree.
Yeah.
You can understand read options and keys on defensive ends. Offensive line play is like a whole different world.
Yeah.
And there's not a lot of quality, entertaining videos out there on it because, frankly, I don't think it's that entertaining when you get down to the nitty-gritty of it. But Blake, as a lawyer, is fascinated by the most boring things you can fathom. And as a man that stares at Microsoft Excel for 95% of the day, I can understand. So, Blake, thank you for being part of this team, and we can't wait to see the continued incredible insight you provide for us with Rivals.
See, I disagree because even though I don't understand a lot of it, I love watching the hogs in the trenches. So I would like to learn more. It's also been noted, somebody asked on the board, we'll go ahead and ask Blake. Somebody asked a question on the board. Why were you so scared in the Oklahoma drill at the Birmingham Bowl?
As I also replied on the board, my wife is squeamish. She doesn't like blood, and there would have been blood, Trevor.
Your blood.
No, your blood. I would have painted the whole stadium red. They would have thought it was an Alabama game.
Rate my 3-point stance before we get into everything. How good was it?
It looked like, what was that jail movie
Wide
with
hips.
football? No. What was it? Longest Yard. You look like the guy with his hand up, waving hi to everyone from Longest Yard. Cheeseburger. That wasn't Cheeseburger Eddie. But long story short, long story short, that shit was trash.
Me and Trevor met Blake for the first time in person. It was
awesome.
He has joined multiple episodes of the Dore Report, but at the Birmingham Bowl in the matchup between Vanderbilt and Georgia Tech, we actually met Blake for the first time. Trevor and Blake lined up for an Oklahoma drill. Some are saying Blake ran away. Some are saying that's all. So Blake had to address that and say he mercifully did not paint the stadium red down in Birmingham. So let's get into this 2024 Vanderbilt football season recap. What a season.
What a magical season.
What a magical season. Vanderbilt started out the year with an over-under win total, according to Vegas, at 2.5 wins. Ended the season with its first winning season in over a decade since 2013. Bowl win for the first time since 2013. A list of incredible accomplishments. SEC Newcomer of the Year for Diego Pavia, SEC Head Coach of the Year for Clark Lee, and a huge step forward for Vanderbilt football, and hopefully a jumping-off point and a base that they can build on. A true foundation for the first time with a lot of talent returning. I'll run through the games really quickly. Everybody listening here knows and remembers which games Vanderbilt won and lost. But just to set the stage, Vanderbilt started out the year with a win over Virginia Tech, 34-27. Then at home beat Alcorn State, 55-0. We were riding high, thinking nothing can touch us, nothing can bring us down.
No drug could have got me that high.
A trip down to Atlanta, a trip down to Georgia State, and Vanderbilt loses, 36-32. Vanderbilt then goes on the road and loses in heartbreaking fashion in double overtime, 30-27 to Missouri. Vanderbilt then at home pulls off the biggest upset in the history of Vanderbilt athletics, maybe the biggest win in the history of Vanderbilt athletics, and beats the number 1 Alabama Crimson Tide 40-35. Follows that up by going on the road and beating Kentucky 20-13. Comes back home, beats Ball State 24-14. Vanderbilt sitting at 4-2, feeling real good going into the last half of the year, which does have some difficult opponents. Vanderbilt beats Ball State 24-14, then has Texas at home, plays Texas in a tight one, loses 27-24, then goes on the road, beats damn Hugh Freeze, that fake TV preacher, 17-7, Diego Pavia's son, Hugh Freeze.
Joel Osteen looking mother effer.
Vanderbilt gets the win 17-7, and then Vanderbilt closes out the year with 3 straight losses. At home, the curse continues against South Carolina. Vanderbilt loses 28-7. On the road, Vanderbilt loses 24-17 to LSU. And then at home, after jumping out to a 14-0 lead, Vanderbilt loses 36-23 to their hated in-state rival, the Tennessee Volunteers. Vanderbilt ends the year 6-6 and gets an invite to the Birmingham Bowl, where they take on the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets in the Battle of the Brains and the Battle of the Cowbell. Vanderbilt goes down to Birmingham, beats Georgia Tech 35-27, goes home with some hardware. Diego Pavia, MVP of the bowl game. Vanderbilt finishes the year 7-6. Like I said, first winning season since 2013, first bowl win since 2013. What an incredible turnaround for a team that went 2-10 last year and had to completely reshape their roster in one offseason. 50 new faces, new quarterback, new coaching staff. Incredible job, and what a turnaround, and some great memories that Vanderbilt fans will never forget. So just to start off, initial thoughts on the season. I already said it was incredible. We'll go to Blake first, since Trevor, we've already talked about it a lot more. Blake, as a former player, what was it like watching this team? I won't say turn a corner, but get started up the stairs to turn a corner. What was that like watching the success they had this year?
Can I ask you a question first, Will?
Absolutely, Blake.
I know where this is going.
You know what my favorite 3 words are? Told you so.
Here we go.
Eat it, Will. Eat it, finance. Put that in your spreadsheet and smoke it, big boy.
Talk your shit, King.
I will say, Blake, what Blake is referencing, we have a lot of new listeners on this episode. Hopefully. A lot of new listeners. Blake joined us for our season preview. My season prediction was 4-8. Blake's was 8-4.
Yes.
And Trevor's was,
I think, also 8-4.
8-4, 7-5.
7-5, maybe.
But I will say, to defend myself a little bit, prior to the bowl game, our win totals were the exact same numbers off. So I did put it in my spreadsheet. I got the variances, two games off each. So for the regular season prediction. So I will add that in.
He wasn't 3 standard deviations
But
away.
I am so damn happy to be wrong, though, Blake. So I will eat it all day. Pause.
That's good. That warms my heart. Thank you, Will. All right. To watch this as a former player, though, excuse me, it was incredible. I mean, it's finally like we have a semblance of looking like a real SEC team. I was excited going into every Saturday. It wasn't like, you come out with a drive that's good and then you expect it all to burn up. I mean, after that Alabama game, because we've been through enough of them as a fan base where you get ahead a little bit in the game, you get excited, and then they smack you in the second half. But after that game, I mean, it was incredible to watch. I finally feel good, about where this program is. I got to talk a bunch of shit to people all year long. Everyone was super nice to me. And I told everyone around me, I'm like, I'm going to be insufferable this year. I'm going to be, you're not going to like me much by the end of it. But I'll tell you this, everyone's been cool with it. Everyone's been happy for Vandy, at least down here in Florida. So it's been a great year. It's been a great ride. Shout out Clark. Shout out all them for making my year a lot better than Will thought it was going to be.
Hey, I will take that all day. Blake hit on an interesting point, which is there are a lot of opposing fan bases, even in the SEC, that have kind of been happy for Vanderbilt this year in seeing the success that they have had. That has been outside of Kentucky and Auburn. That I wouldn't say we're quite as happy. Yep. It will be very interesting because you're seeing the first sprinkles of it with the Diego Pavia ruling and him coming back next year. Is Vanderbilt, it was a very fun, cute story this year with Vanderbilt making a bowl game, beating teams they shouldn't, upsetting number one Alabama, and maybe breaking that program with the performance we saw in the bowl game from Alabama. You're already seeing it with the Pavia ruling, and some SEC fan bases are already not starting to like it. Whoa, wait a second.
Yeah.
He's back. Vanderbilt.
Get a job.
Wait. They're like, oh, he's going to play. He's 28, 29 years old. And they don't even realize it. But what is happening is Vanderbilt is doing and making moves that other SEC programs make and do.
Yeah.
And they don't like that.
Yeah.
Vanderbilt is supposed to have a magical season and win 6 to 8 games, maybe even 9 every few years. And other than that, go back to your basement and go back to your proper spot. This upcoming offseason, I think you will see a lot of maybe SEC media talking heads glowing about how good Vanderbilt potentially could be. And I think you're going to start seeing a little bit of frustration from some of those lower tier to mid tier SEC teams. I don't think you're going to see it from the Georgias and the Bamas. I think you are going to see it and start to see it more from the Auburns and the Mississippi States and the Missouris. And those teams are going to start getting a little, and it's going to stop being as cute, especially if Vanderbilt comes out, has even more success this year. And that is the goal.
Yeah.
You don't want it to be a cute story. You want these teams to dislike you the same way. They're not excited when Arkansas is good.
Yeah.
They're not excited when Tennessee goes on a run and is good. So that's where Vanderbilt needs to get. And I'm glad that they've kind of set the foundation for that and they can springboard off of that, which when was the last time you said Vanderbilt's team is ready to springboard off the success they had last year?
2012.
2012. 2012 was the last time, because after that 2013 year, you didn't feel that way at all, even before the departure of Franklin. You were thinking there's a lot of talent leaving.
I don't know. I drank the Derek Mason juice hard. Then again, I was like 15, 16.
I drank the Derek Mason juice hard because I didn't understand.
Yes,
I was in high school.
Naivety.
I was naive to it, but yeah, Blake, that's an incredible point. People are nice to you now, but watch out if Vanderbilt starts out 2-0, 3-0 next season. Those Gator fans might start being a little less nice. They aren't on the schedule, so maybe they will enjoy it.
Yeah, just make fun of their jorts, Blake.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what they do down here. But heck, Florida's starting to get pretty good too. So I don't know. I kind of wish we played them. I really do. I think that would have been a fun game this year.
Yeah.
Would you have cheered for Florida?
No.
Trevor, any final thoughts on what you saw this season before we get into position grades?
I mean, I said it all on Twitter, man. Like, just for me personally, like, this was truly like a magical season. And I don't think there's any other way to put it. Like, this was one of the most fun. I will be 75, 80 years old, God willing, I make it that long. And I'm going to be looking back and being like, man, that 2024 season. Like, I know it's a meme. It's like, oh, Dad, tell me about Diego Pavia. And like, he starts crying. I'm like, that's really going to be me. He's like, Dad, tell me about CJ Taylor. And I'm going to start crying and be like, son, you don't understand.
It's the first time that I can remember, even during James Franklin years, it was different. It's the first time since 2008 that Vanderbilt has captured America's eyes. And it's been the storyline. In 2008, they were that way with the 5-0 start. They got a lot of college game day came to campus. There was a lot of national attention. Vanderbilt had success during Franklin's era. They had success during Mason's era when they weren't a complete joke, absolutely. But they didn't capture the nation. They didn't have a star that really stuck out, or a team or something that Diego Pavia is a star that they haven't had anything like ever.
Yeah.
Ever. I mean that. I'm not saying the best player, but they've never had a guy remotely
a personality like that.
And that leads perfectly into our first position and our first position grade. So we are going to start out with the most important position on the field. There's a reason that this position gets all of the glory, because they also get all of the criticism when things do not go well, and that is the quarterback position. Vanderbilt had a lot of question marks at the quarterback position. I think that is forgotten, especially during the offseason. In spring ball, everybody fully expected Nate Johnson to be the starting quarterback for Vanderbilt. That was the full expectation. Nate Johnson coming in, former 4-star guy, transfer from Utah, freak athletically, runs an incredible 40-yard dash. You see him, he looks like an NFL prospect at the quarterback position when you see him.
Until you watch him throw the football.
But Diego Pavia, later addition to the roster, did not practice with the team in the spring. Transferred from New Mexico State, Offensive Player of the Year in their conference, followed Jerry Kill and Tim Beck to Vanderbilt. Came onto the scene, and just from the beginning, the first reports were he just took over that job. And he was the starter. There were no questions immediately when he got to campus, basically. Everybody tried to add some intrigue into it.
Yeah.
I will give TDR some benefit from the beginning because we did have access to early spring practice.
Yeah.
We were very much saying Diego Pavia is the starter.
And he wasn't even on campus yet.
Specifically, I was saying, no, if Diego Pavia is not your starter, we have some big problems.
Yeah.
Huge problems.
If he's not your guy, we're dog shit.
So Diego Pavia, I'll get through his stats really quick. On the season, 177 of 298. 59.4% completion percentage. Not great. 2,293 yards passing, 20 touchdowns, and a key stat, 4 interceptions. He was also only sacked 18 times, which we will get into that when we evaluate the offensive line. Incredible that a Vanderbilt quarterback was only sacked 18 times on the season. He was also, in Diego Pavia, Vanderbilt's leading rusher. On the ground, Diego Pavia had 193 carries for 800 yards and 8 touchdowns, the most rushing touchdowns on the team, a 4.1 yard carry average. He also had the second longest rush on the team with 36 yards. Overall, I won't give my grade yet because I'll be going last in these grades, so I'll just swing it to one of you. Who wants to go first in the rest of this in evaluating the quarterback position?
I'll go first because I'm going to keep this brief. It's an A+. I get that the stats weren't like gaudy, but he was good. Even whenever you look at the stats, he was a damn good quarterback. And then whenever you look at the intangibles, and it's like you said, we have never seen a personality like Diego Pavia completely take over the nation, but not just the nation, take a hold of that locker room and come in day one and say, I'm the guy, and really will a team to victory. Did he have his ups and downs? Yeah, but that's football. Short and sweet, unmitigated success from Diego Pavia. A+ for me.
I cannot give out an A+ to a team that doesn't beat Tennessee. I can't. I think that's a prerequisite in my mind for you to get an A+. So, Diego, I'm giving you the highest grade I possibly can with that caveat. You get an A, but in court, A+. Whoop that
go.
NCAA ass, baby. So on the field, A, in court, A+. He's everything we needed this season and more. You guys know how I did throw some D's last year with Rich Boy?
Yeah.
We're moving out west this year, a little south for Diego Pavia. We got that Mike Jones back then swag. Back then, they didn't want him. Now he's hot. They're all on him. Diego Pavia. That's who I'm talking about. That's my QB1 going into next season. Keep going to court. Keep whooping that NCAA's ass, and we'll have you for 5 more years if we can. A.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah. So Trevor gives an A+, Blake gives an A. I am also giving an A.
Mm-hmm.
Not an A+. Not because you have to beat Tennessee, that might have bumped it to an A+.
Yeah.
I'm giving it an A, and the main reason is there's still more there. An A+, and the reason there's more there, we will never know 100%. But I think the last 6 games of that year, Pavia was not healthy. And so you didn't get to see full Diego Pavia. And we speculated on that. There were reports he was a little bit hobbled. And then we saw him in the Georgia Tech game.
Yeah.
And every single fan that watched that said, yep, that's the Diego Pavia I saw the first 6 games of the season. And so it was very obvious he was hurt. Mm-hmm. So there were a few things left on the table, and Pavia was great. The personality, he had the soundbite of Vandy, we fucking turned. That went crazy, is still going to be used, will be used 10 years from now. Incredible. And then he got on the mic. This hasn't been mentioned enough. He got the mic handed to him at the Birmingham Bowl on the stage and immediately dropped another F-bomb.
I love it.
Diego Pavia was asked, what does this mean to you? How much does this mean to you? And he said something like a whole fucking lot. And they took away the mic and never allowed him to speak again. So that was his only entrance back into being interviewed. Pavia might not be allowed to be interviewed the rest of the year. But
free my boy Diego Pavia.
But that almost bumped him to an A+. But I'm giving him an A. There were a few times throughout the season he did a great job taking care of the ball. Only threw 4 interceptions. That might be why that completion percentage is a little bit lower. He made some calculated decisions throwing that ball away or in situations where only his guy could go and get it. However, the completion percentage is under 60% for a reason. He missed a few open guys. There were a few times in key plays where he overthrew the guy by half a yard on what could have been a massive gain or a touchdown. So it was an A. It was incredible. Best quarterback play I personally have seen in my life from a Vanderbilt quarterback, willing them to wins. It's hard. Like, I know people say, "Oh, Jay Cutler," or "Oh, Shermer,"
Or
"Oh,
Jordan Rodgers.
There's a reason that no Vanderbilt quarterback ever has beaten a top 5 AP ranked team. And that's because no quarterback has ever performed how Pavia does. That doesn't even get to what's going to influence how we viewed this offensive line, is how great of a job he did avoiding pass rush.
Yeah.
And just turning plays that would have been obvious, crumple down into a 5-yard loss, and turned them into either throwing the ball away for a no loss, no gain play, or actually making a positive play down the field.
Yeah.
So much that Pavia did was great. An A. And I'll go ahead and spoil it. That's my highest. No, not my highest grade. That is not my highest grade of the season given to a position. But,
Okay.
but Diego Pavia does get an A from me. Next up, we have running backs.
Interesting. Okay.
Yep. I'm teasing everybody here.
Okay.
So, next up, we have running backs. I'm going to read through the stats,
Okay.
and then we'll swing it to you. On the season, Diego Pavia was the team's leading rusher. On the stats I read off, second leading rusher, Cedric Alexander in his sophomore season. 164 carries, 586 yards, 6 touchdowns, 3.6 yards per carry. AJ Newberry, 41 carries, 185 yards, 3 touchdowns, was out the last couple of games of the season. Monty Jones, 18 carries, 54 yards. Chase Gillespie, 15 carries, 51 yards. Receiving, Cedric Alexander, 23 catches, 238 yards, 1 touchdown. AJ Newberry, 7 catches, 134 yards, 2 touchdowns. So there's the stats for the running back position. Trevor, I'll swing it to you for the evaluation and grade.
I'm going to give him a C+. I'm going to give him a C+. How much of the production that was missed out on is the actual running back position? How much of it is the offensive line? I don't know. I do know that I like Cedric Alexander as a workhorse. He lacks the speed that I think you need for a RB1 in the SEC. With that being said, and I've said it on the other pod, I think what he does well, AJ Newberry necessarily doesn't do well. And what AJ Newberry does well, said he doesn't necessarily do well. I think AJ Newberry has the speed. I think he has the speed. We didn't see it. I'm going to break the table. I think he has the speed. I don't know why we didn't see it. I would like for the coaching staff to let him loose a little bit more. But also, like, we read off these stats, but both these guys were damn good in the pass game, and both these guys were really, really good in blocking. So I think we have to take that into account too, and that's not going to show up in a stat sheet necessarily for the blocking. The receptions will. But overall, left a lot to be desired. I'm going to give them I think I said a C+. Did I say a C+? I'm going to stick with a C+.
Trevor's going C+. Blake, what are you going?
I'm going to give him a B. You know what else starts with a B? Blocking does. And, it's those unsung plays throughout the year that, every sprint out pass, they were blocking for other running backs. They're blocking for everybody. The plays, I mean, who were they playing when I think Alexander just completely decleated someone and just Kentucky. Right. And he gets love on that play. But, I'd go back and watch the film in the tenacity that those guys have. And you got to understand their read option plays. Pavia's taken some of their looks that they'd get in a normal offense away from him because he's pulling it and running it. And everything's going which direction. You have a bunch of options every play. I agree. We definitely benefit from a little bit more speed out of Alexander. But, I mean, he's working his ass off. I like him. I think Newberry's good. Listen, I'm a sucker for offensive line play. So when I see those guys out there cutting and getting second level blocks, it plays to my heart and I love it. So those guys getting asked to do a lot of tough and different things this year, I think they get a B from me.
A C+ from Trevor, a B from Blake. So I guess I'll be given the lowest grade. I'm going with a C for the running backs. The only thing that kept this above a C, and the only reason it is a C and not lower, is everything that you guys pointed out. I think the running backs were good in the pass game, but more specifically in why it's still a C. I think these running backs were great in pass protection, run blocking. I think they executed a lot of unique formations, blocked for each other really well, and then blocked in the pass game really well. That gives them a C. Now, with that said, if you would have asked me what the grades were 4 games, 5 games into the season after the Bama game, it would have been a B+ or an A-. What I saw the final 7 games of the season was concerning, to say the least. Whatever it was, whether Seti was hurt, whatever it was, he lost that first man miss
that cut.
Yeah, whatever it is, he lost that the last 7 games of the season. I cannot give above a C to a group of, and it's in the name. You know what's in the name of a running back for a reason? Running. Your job is to run the football forward. I can't give above a C to a group of running backs that's longest rush was 31 yards. You have to have more explosive capability than that in your backfield as a Vanderbilt running back group. You just do. Diego Pavia is not an explosive runner. He had a 36-yard rush this season. Nate Johnson had by far your longest rush of the year on a 75-yard rushing touchdown. So I think Seti has the capability of being that down in, down out back. I think he does. He has to have the occasional 60, 50-yard touchdown. You need that. If you put a Keyshawn Vaughn type running back in this offense, it would be like adding this engine and adding another piece and creating a Ferrari engine. That's what they're missing, is that big play running back. So I'm giving them a C. That may be a little harsh. I liked a lot of what I saw. It's always the question of how much is it, the offensive line, how much is it the running backs, but I'm giving them a C. You can't have your longest rush be 31 yards. At least a few times this season, a gaping hole was opened, and they didn't have an ability to make that last guy miss and truly turn it into a game-changing play. So Trevor, C+, Blake, B. I'm going with a C on the running backs. Let's go to the guys that catch the ball, or one of the position groups that catches the ball, wide receivers. This is an interesting one. Not a ton of talent. You knew that going in. You knew it was kind of a thin group. Junior Sherrill, Quincy Skinner Jr. taking over the primary pass catching roles after Will Shepherd transferred. The leading pass catcher on the year was a tight end. We'll actually get to in the next position group. But Junior Sherrill on the year, 29 catches for 411 yards, 3 touchdowns. Quincy Skinner Jr., 29 catches, 367, 3 touchdowns. Loic Fungi, 12 catches for 187 yards, no touchdowns. Richie Hoskins, 11 catches, 131 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Joseph McVay, 1 catch, 65, and a touchdown. And on and on and on with very small contributions. So wide receivers, an interesting group. You're never going to have gaudy stats in this Tim Beck offense, no matter if you have first-round NFL wide receivers. But a primary objective of this group, even more than running backs, is blocking. So it's an interesting one to grade. So I'll swing it to you, Trevor. What do you got?
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought up the blocking, but I won't start with that. I'm going to give this group a C+ as well. Like you said, first and foremost, you got to be threats in the passing game. And they weren't that this year. Now, like we said with the running back group, how much of the production is the running back group versus Diego Pavia taking certain reads versus the offensive line? How much is the lack of production in the passing game due to the offensive scheme? That I don't know. I will say what I thought was most promising, and I'll give a take with this. The way this wide receiver core blocked on the perimeter was truly something to watch. Like it truly was like something beautiful. And we know, I'm not saying any of these wide receivers on this team are divas, but there's a cliche that wide receivers are divas. They want the ball. Like, let's just call it what it is. We experienced that with Will Shepherd. But these dudes did the absolute dirty work that wide receivers typically do not like, and they freed up a lot of space in the perimeter for Diego Pavia and the run game. And I think that we should not discount that. And additionally, I'll say, even though I gave them a C+, how we talked about Gavin Schoenwald and Ben Bresnahan and what they brought to the run game with their blocking, I think with Quincy Skinner Jr. leaving, we're going to talk about him like we talked about Gavin Schoenwald and Ben Bresnahan with what he brought to the perimeter blocking. Like, that dude blocks his tail off. Loic Fungi, thank God we get him another year, blocks his tail off. Junior Sherrill Small blocks his tail off. So that's not going to show up in the stat sheet, but like whenever you rewatch the tape, like that stuff matters. But still, production wasn't there. Is it their fault? Is it offensive scheme? I don't know. Blake will be able to talk more about that, but I'm going to give them a C+ again.
I'm going to go C+ as well. I think, the blocking was incredible for wide receiver core. Can't say enough good things about that. I love that. And also the Alabama game, that late touchdown changed lives everywhere. But, as we got later into the season, I found myself on 3rd and long. No one was able to get separation. It didn't look crisp from them on 3rd downs. I think there was a decent amount left to be desired on our pass routes and our ability to separate and win some one-on-ones in those situations. So I'm gonna give them a C+. I thought they did a brilliant job blocking, but in terms of route running consistently, I didn't think it was there as much as I'd like it to have been. There were brilliant spots though throughout the season where I thought people flashed and did great jobs. This isn't me saying the whole thing was a joke or a wash. Like, there was great. It's just the times where there was a lull and there wasn't production. There was nothing there. So, I'll give them that. I'm proud. I'd rather have some gritty wide receivers than, a bunch of George Pickens on my team getting angry. They're not getting the ball every 2 seconds. So I'm happy with our core. I wish we'd have 1 or 2 more playmakers and abilities, one-on-one beaters, but C+ is fine. You could pass high school with that.
This hurts. I said running back was toughest for me personally. Wide receiver was the toughest to give a grade to, for a lot of the reasons you just said. The blocking was great on the outside. The wide receiver blocking, I want to emphasize that early before I give my grade. That was great. The catch against Alabama from Junior Sherrill was great. I think Quincy Skinner Jr. and Junior Sherrill had moments of being true wide receiver 1s and wide receiver 2s. But at the end of the day, even more than running back, the primary purpose of a wide receiver is you've got to get open when you're in one-on-one situations. And a lot of the time this season, teams were playing 8 in the box, single high safety, one-on-one on the outside, and they dared our wide receivers to beat their defense. And time again, Quincy and Junior could not get open consistently. And that's what stifled this offense. His team started just stacking the box and said, beat us over top. And you saw that early. I think it was in what game did Vanderbilt start out with a touchdown? Was it Texas to Quincy down the sideline? Yeah. That was Texas saying, yeah, you'll hit that now and again, but you're not going to hit that over and over. I would take our guy 19 times out of 20 over your wide receiver on the outside. So my grade for that reason is a D+. I liked what I saw blocking, but the thing that held this Vanderbilt offense back was not Diego Pavia. Partially, maybe you could say it's lack of explosive running back play. I don't think that was the primary reason this offense was held back. This offense was held back because the wide receivers couldn't win in one-on-one situations consistently. So I have to give a low grade somewhere because this team had a spectacular season, but there are definitely places to improve. Wide receiver is the most obvious place they have to improve. Mm-hmm. They have to have better explosive playmakers on the outside. Now, none of these guys are ever going to put up gaudy numbers. So it's not necessarily that I'm looking at the box score at the end of the season and saying, oh, they need to have 45 catches for 900 yards. It's that I watched those games. I watched how defenses schemed against this Vanderbilt team, and they paid very little attention to the guys on the outside. So I'm giving a D+. I really struggled between a D+ and a C- because I didn't hate what I saw out of the wide receiver group. They don't have a wide receiver 1 right now. Mm-hmm. If Quincy and Junior were wide receiver 2 and 3 and they had a legit wide receiver 1, man, this team would have been explosive, but they didn't. Mm-hmm. So I'm going with the D+. Next up, tight ends. This is a group that had a lot of expectations going into this season. And they exceeded them by a lot. The tight end room was a place that really struggled last year after you lost Bresnahan and Schoenwald. Mm-hmm. This season took a big step up with the addition of Eli Stowers, Cole Spence coming back from injury, Cam Johnson. This team had a lot of talent at the tight end position. So, Trevor, what do you grade in the tight ends?
I gave Diego Pavia an A+. I'm going to have to give the tight ends an A+ as well. I thought what Eli Stowers did this year was something that I haven't seen a pass catcher for Vanderbilt really do since Jordan Matthews. Now, I know that Trent Sherfield was great. I know that Kalijah Lipscomb was great. I know that Jared Pinkney until his senior season was great. But there were legitimately moments in a lot of them to where Eli Stowers took over. And just him alone, A+. I thought that Cole Spence really took a step forward this year, becoming a red zone target. But overall, man, and Cam Johnson had that huge touchdown to really kind of seal the deal against Alabama. I think he's a really supremely talented kid. I wish he would get a little bit more looks, but man, that's just a loaded tight end room. So with that reason, I'm going to give them an A+. They exceeded expectations.
I forgot to read off the stats here before Blake goes. Eli Stowers was the team's leading receiver, 49 catches, 638 yards, 5 touchdowns. Cole Spence had 10 catches for 101 yards and 2 touchdowns. So, and Cam Johnson, 1 catch, 6 yards and a touchdown. Had to get that out there. Blake, what's your grade?
I am going to give them an A-. I think Pavi is definitely getting my highest grade as an A, but tight ends second highest grade on offense, A-. I listened to our podcast and season recap last year, and there's a huge, talking point with all of us about how we need blocking tight ends, how it was missing. And I even went as far as to say we have wide receivers dressed up in tight end bodies right now. And I said, we need to get some run blockers on the edge who can get up to the second level, who can get some movement on the defensive ends. I can tell all of you that this team, must have listened to this recap from last year, because my God, Cole Spence is unfreaking believable at run blocking. I know Eli Stowers was getting his flowers and everyone was loving on him. And Trevor, I think he's great, but I'm going to just rest on what you said about him. Cole Spence in the run game was unfreaking real. Watch any game back. It didn't matter who was in front of him. He was whooping ass. He made, his footwork was good. He was getting pushback. He was finishing blocks. He was pancaking people. It was exciting watching him. A lot of our offense opened up because of him. And, again, Stowers is the man. He gets all the recognition and praise and glory, but I'll be a Cole Spence, stand for you guys. He's a dog. He's everything we need in this offense to block. I am pumped he's coming back next year, and damn it, when he goes, I hope we have another Cole Spence in the waiting, because he made this engine go on way more plays than people give him credit for.
I'm glad you brought up Cole Spence, so I didn't have to, actually, Blake. So Trevor hit on Stowers. You hit on Cole Spence. I'll go ahead and get it out there. Trevor was an A+. You were an A-. I'm giving him an A. So we hit all the A categories in this.
Hey.
Throw some A's on that.
I have nothing. Yeah, I have nothing to really add besides Stowers is the best tight end Vanderbilt has ever had. I mean, uncompetitively. You can try to think through it. I've thought this through. Who?
Earl was a wide receiver. Some old heads would say Allamaw Matthews.
No, Eli Stowers, the reason I'm saying that is, once again, I'm saying, number one, productivity, but also Vanderbilt's never had a guy that has legitimate, top 2 or 3 round potential at that position. And Stowers is everything the NFL is looking at for a tight end. So it's been announced that he is coming back. He is Diego Pavi's roommate with that NCAA ruling. Eli Stowers is coming back. He is so huge to have back. He is your best receiving threat, as well as a good blocker. But Cole Spence, that was such a key we hit on, was how big of a deal it was to lose Schoenwald and Bresnahan. And Blake, you already hit on it perfectly. I didn't go back and watch through all the games, but that was something that stuck out, is every time Vanderbilt had a productive run, it felt like they were running towards Cole Spence's side, or he was chipping on an edge that would open it up and then going into a route later, and became a great red zone target later in the season. So this tight end room will continue to be good. And then Cam Johnson adds a completely different aspect. He is that kind of, they have all 3 types. They have Cole Spence, that's the traditional possession blocking tight end. They have Eli Stowers, that's kind of the mixture field general tight end. And then you have Cam Johnson. I don't mean this negatively, but as a wide receiver,
Travis Kelce.
Position, he is an explosive. I almost say, and I won't say Kelce, I'll say that's what Stowers reminds me of more. But I would say that Cam Johnson reminds me a bit, and this is a name for Titans fans, like Chigo Okonkwo, of just a guy that truly has the straight line speed of a wide receiver, but is in a tight end's body. So they have an exciting tight end room, and I'm glad we gave different variations of A's. So last position on the offensive side of the ball, Blake might have some hard opinions on this, but it's offensive line.
Yeah.
A group that, regardless of what grades we give, because it's hard to balance grading on the curve of how bad this team was last year, and then giving grades. So that's kind of a balance of things. But the offensive line, before we give any grades, was so improved from what it was last year.
Oh, yeah.
What they did in the portal, Lasoya, Hubbard, Chase Mitchell, massively, massively improved. So, Trevor, what do you got?
I'm going to give him a B-, man. And I know it's like you said, I'm glad you brought it up. It's hard not to grade on a curve considering the offensive line play last year. I'm going to give them a B-, man. Like, I know that there was a lot of times that there was pressure and they got pushed around. But, man, there were also some times that they pushed a lot of dudes around, like that Kentucky and Auburn game. Let's not forget that Kentucky had and this was before they got hurt, had a really, really, really good defensive line. And Vanderbilt's offensive line manhandled them. Vanderbilt's offensive line did really good work against Auburn's defensive front. Auburn had a very talented defensive front. So I'm going to give them a B-. There were some great things. There were some not great things. But, man, overall, like they gave Diego Pavia a chance to succeed. And Blake's going to have way more to talk about on this topic. But I think that's really all you can ask from him is they gave him a chance. And he capitalized on it. And you know what? I'm going to give him a B-.
I'm giving them a B just for context. I know we're not doing curve. Last year, in case anyone new is listening, I gave them a D- in case you think I just give out free grades to the offensive line. So I was very, very, very mean last year in my grade. I think they get a B. A couple reasons. They had some new guys come in. They installed a whole new offense. This quick guard, quick tackle, strong guard, strong tackle. It can't be overstated that switching different sides of the line, having to know the footwork, the play calls, where you're going, because each side of the line has different calls if they're blitzing, and there's a whole lot of communication. There's the game inside with the game when you're doing that. I think it's insane, them executing at the level they did, especially in SEC environments where they're switching sides often. They're seeing a bunch of different looks, a bunch of different blitzes, and you can't even hear your quarterback. You have to try to listen, for the quarterback to clap, and the center looks up, through his legs and up at the linebacker to snap it. So I'm impressed. There's definitely some things that got away from us for sure. I've watched all the games. I will tell you guys this. I am pretty confident in saying our offensive line did not lose us any games. Maybe South Carolina is arguable. I mean, we got smacked against South Carolina, but they have NFL guys all over their defensive line. Last year, we didn't play enough to win. This year, we are standard deviations higher, and they gave us a chance to win. We didn't win in spite of them. A lot of times we scored and we won because of them. I mean, look at them moving, look at what they did against Alabama. You throw Xavier Castillo at center for the first time in that game, and he dominates. I looked at the PFF grades. I think he had the highest grade on the whole offensive line. Putting him at center was a brilliant move, and he took the responsibility, and center's really hard. And he went out there and he executed. I mean, that's the quarterback of the offensive line. They got to call out the fronts. They got to be able to communicate and get everyone on the same page, because if one guy's off, all of them are off. So he was incredible. I was very impressed with Hubbard. I think he's a leader. I hope somehow or another he's able to come back next year. I thought Hansen was good. I don't think he quite lived up to where I had him in my mind, but that isn't to say he had a bad year. I think he did a good enough job for us to win. Kevin Wesley did fine. Chase Mitchell, I think he's probably better at guard than tackle, but there's also some brilliant plays he made too when I watched him. I thought they were a nasty group. They were completely different than last year. And, if we're trending this way and we keep getting guys in the portal and moving this direction, there's a lot to look forward to. So with that, they get a B.
So we got a B- from Trevor, a B from Blake. So I'll go ahead and get my grade out. I have a B-. And this is the toughest group to not grade on a curve.
I totally agree.
That's because in general, I don't mean because basing it on last year, but generally, even on teams that have been great or good in Vanderbilt past, offensive line is always the position where Vanderbilt struggles the most. They just struggle to get the depth, offensive and defensive line. Those are the two positions that historically Vanderbilt just struggles to get the big bodies with depth. They just can't. So this is probably the best or one of the best offensive lines I've ever seen at Vanderbilt. And that's not, I don't know this, Blake. That's not an excessively high bar, but this is the best one I've seen since the Bruno Reagan offensive line days, for sure.
Yeah, they had some dogs there. Obviously, like Wesley Johnson and all those. Blake was a dog. But God, and this is no disrespect to former Vanderbilt offensive linemen, but there have been a lot of bad ones.
There have been a lot of bad offensive lines. The only reason that I can't give any higher than a B- is watching the replays. I don't know the intricacies of O-line play, but I watched every game at least twice. There are a lot of plays that would have 100,000% been sacks. I mean, probably double what the actual sack total was this year of, I think, 18.
Mm-hmm.
That if you didn't have Diego Pavia at quarterback, if you had Kyle Shermer, or even go back just last year to A.J. Swan, or even Mike Wright, they would have been sacks. So a lot of these numbers and why this offense flowed so well and why the offensive line looked better, there were still a lot of free rushers that got to Pavia very quickly. And having that mobile improviser type quarterback cannot be overemphasized how much that helps out an offensive line from Vanderbilt that is frankly overmatched week in, week out in SEC play. However, they dominated individual games. Like Blake brought up Alabama. You back and watch that. They dominated the line of scrimmage.
Virginia Tech, they
dominated that line of scrimmage. So a lot of that was prior to Pavia getting banged up and having that extra ability and extra threat in the offense. But I'm still giving them a B-. And if you would have said that's an incredible grade because they exceeded every expectation that I had. And like Blake said, if they can keep finding these guys in the portal, they have that interior offensive lineman from Liberty who's a 4-star transfer, Jordan White. He could be a guy transfer from Virginia. They've got in there
Gunnar Givens,
Hubbard hopefully coming back.
Yeah,
they have some talent there. So there's a lot to build
Chase
on
Mitchell
in general on this team. So you got a B-, a B from Blake, and a B- from me. Now it's time to flip sides of the ball. So we're doing defensive line, linebackers, defensive backs. So we're not separating out corners and safeties. So we'll start in the trenches since we're already there. We're going to go defensive line. That was, I would say, outside of playmakers on the outside, the most vocal concerns from Vanderbilt fans were lack of pass rush from this team. That's been a complaint for years and years and years. How much of that is Clark Lee's scheme and that he's willing to drop 7 or 8 guys into coverage? How much of that is these guys just can't get to the pass rusher? Some of this was hurt by the fact that Zaylen Wood was injured early in the season, who looked like he was going to have a hell of a year. So I don't know if there's stats I need to get through to tell the full story. I could go through sacks, I guess. But Trevor, do you already have your grade in mind?
do, yeah.
I'll go through sacks. Sidner had the most sacks of a defensive lineman with 4. Miles Capers as an edge rusher had 3. Wataha had 2. Linus Zunk had 1.5. DeCosmo had 1.5. Zaylen Wood had 1. Demarion Thomas had 1. So those are the sack numbers on the year. Yeah. But Trevor, what do you give the defensive line overall as a position grade?
Overall, I feel very similar to the defensive line as I do to the offensive line. I think it's hard not to grade on a curve. But I'm gonna give them as well a B-. The edge rushers weren't necessarily there, but like the sack production, that's way better sack production than they had in 2023. And so, like, obviously, and you lose probably your premier pass rusher in Zaylen Wood to start the season. So that's already a big blow. I really like what they did this year. I think you had a lot of new guys step forward. I think Linus Zunk had a big year. I mean, he only had 1.5 sack, but I think with the pressure that he got on the quarterback was impressive. I think Sidner was good. I think Miles Caper had a good year. And I've said it over and over and over again. Somebody that I think Vanderbilt fans should really, really focus on is Demarion Thomas. I think that kid's going to be a stud. I think what he did in the interior defensive line, really against Georgia Tech as well, that kid's a run stopper. Like he's a monster at that 3-tech position. I think he's really good. So I'm going to give them a B- as well.
It's a higher grade than I anticipated. I'm curious to hear what Blake grades them.
You can try to stop me from splitting them up, but I have to. The interior defensive line, I was impressed with them all year. I thought they stopped the run. You're not going to get, with some of those bigger bodies, I don't think you're getting huge production in the pass rush game. But in terms of stopping the interior run, there were some huge, huge 4th down and short stops this year, and they're younger guys. I know Zaylen Wood got hurt, but the younger guys are great. I think they're trending very well. The inside, the Porky boys, the late night double cheese boys, they get a B. I'm going to give the defensive ends a C+ because I think Sidnor, made some sacks, and I saw him do some nasty pass rush moves this year that I haven't seen out of our defensive ends in a minute. I think Capers is good, but too many times in the big games, was it LSU? He's sitting there for 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
Nico's sitting there for 5 years. I mean, there's got to be someone who could go against that 5-star left tackle, first couple round draft pick, and have some sort of success. So they get a C+. The big boys get a B.
Yeah, that was my big question going into this. It's kind of tough. I couldn't decide to separate out corners and safeties and separate out interior and edge rushers.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a good point. It's hard to separate out those because I have kind of the same opinion. I have a higher view of how the interior of this defensive line performed.
I agree.
Than I do the pass rushing side of things and the edge rusher side of things. At the end of the day, something with this defense has to be graded low due to the success that teams had through the air. Something has to not be great.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think the core of that problem was linebackers or secondary and pass coverage. So something was the main issue in that. And I think, just off my watching of every game multiple times, that the main issue in Vanderbilt's pass coverage was, and they have their base 3 or 4 linemen, they could get zero pressure on the quarterback. And that was the main problem of this defense this entire season. So I'm giving them a D+. That seems harsh. I liked what I saw on the interior stopping the run. But, Trevor, you've brought it up on episodes in the past. You can only guard for about 5 seconds.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you have Revis, Richard Sherman in his prime. You can only guard for about 5 seconds.
And that's generous.
And that is generous. And so many times this year, the coverage was there for the first 4 to 5 seconds. And you can only hold up for that long. And Vanderbilt had to send extra rushers to get a pass rush. Now, Vanderbilt's tried to address that during the offseason. They got Keanu Coote. They've got some guys coming back like Zaylen Woods, Sidner. They should be better at that this upcoming season, but they didn't do that this entire year, and pass rush was a problem. So improved stopping the run. I would say I saw basically no improvement from the defensive line edge rushers from last season. Sack production was up, but it was up from 21 to 26 sacks on the year, and most of that was due to increased sack production from your linebackers. So I saw no improvement pass rush from last year. Where I did see improvement was stopping the run. So I'm giving a D+. It's probably more of a D+, very close to a C-, but it's a D+ for me on the defensive line. Definitely the main issue with Vanderbilt's defense this year that had some rough stretches to it. They were improved. Everything about this Vanderbilt team was improved, but not everything was great on this team. So now to get to another position group that I think will have generally higher grades, but I don't know. We haven't shared these grades beforehand. Linebackers, a very talented group, a group that before the season we had high expectations for. Langston Patterson, Prince Colley came in there rotationally, Brian Longwell, Nick Rinaldi. Trevor, what do you think of what you saw to the linebackers this year?
Man, I thought in pass coverage, I thought in the run game, I thought in pressuring the quarterback. Overall, man, I thought this was a really talented linebacker group. I think it was very deep. I think you probably would have seen a little bit more Prince Colley if Rinaldi, Longwell, and Patterson didn't really have those top spots locked up. And so, I mean, too, like, you got to think about it like, man, like a kid like Bryce Cowan, you know what I mean? Like, you didn't really see a whole lot of him, and that kid's got all the talent in the world. I'm going to give them an A, not an A- or an A+. I'm going to give them an A. I think they're a very talented group. I think the only times that they really struggled was sort of towards the middle of the season, to where Langston was hobbled. And you can't really knock them for that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's why I have a hard time knocking the defensive line to an extent. Like, in terms of pressuring the quarterback, it's like, well, like Zaylen Wood, who would look like a speed demon, like, got hurt early. But so they had some moments, but like, I think going back to the Kentucky game, the game that I was most impressed with the linebackers is the Kentucky game, to where they did not have Langston Patterson. And you had a pretty dynamic quarterback in Brock Vandegrift that could run the ball, and you had a really good running back. And I thought Brian Longwell and Nick Rinaldi held their own and really locked down. And I think the star of that was really Bryce Cowan, who stepped into his own that game. So I'm going to give them an A.
Yeah, the other part of this is is Randon Fontenette considered a safety?
Yeah, like
or
where
a
do you
linebacker?
put
That's a
him?
good.
Yeah.
I was gonna say.
I think you might lump him. He's truly a tweener. So
Yeah.
we're going to lump him into linebackers.
I put him as a backer.
We'll lump him in for the sake of this into the linebacker group. So adjust that into your grades if you need to. But we'll lump Fontenette into the linebacker group.
Yeah.
I think he's closer to a linebacker than a corner.
I think that position group is
Yeah.
more of a backer.
What do you got, Blake?
I was going to give them a B until last week when I saw Coach Lazinski's big coat. So they're getting the Lazinski big coat boost of the week, which gives them a B plus. That coat is gigantic, sir. Coach, you need to go see a Walter Taylor or CJ Taylor and get that thing heamed up. Like, come on, buddy. But the linebacker play was good. They showed up in big moments. I thought Cowan's a dog. You know, Langston Patterson's a dog. Collie did some great things. And Nick Rinaldi, I know that your coaches, you know, he loves you. Maybe he loves you the most.
Mhm.
You need to take him to the Men's Warehouse or the local tailor, and please God, tell him the size 58 suit jacket with the 70s XXL tie is just, this isn't working out. Do that, and I'll give you an A.
So B plus from Blake.
The Nick Lazinski suit boost.
Suit boost. Blake stole my grade with no suit boost. I'm going B plus as well. The team had a lot of expectations. Grouping Fontenette lumps gives it a B plus. I mean, y'all hit on everything. I don't have anything else to add. Langston being hobbled prevents them from being an A, but I mean, they did everything you expect. Rinaldi was better than I expected. Longwell was better than I expected. Langston was exactly what I expected. Prince Collie was a little less than I expected, but B plus overall for me. I have nothing to add. Blake, you tore the house down on that one. Next, we will go to defensive backs. The last portion. This is tough. You're not splitting up corners and safeties. It is what it is. Defensive backs, they had their moments of looking better, had their moments of really struggling. Trevor, how do you view the defensive back play so far? This past season?
This is the most difficult for me to examine because I'll break it down. I thought there were individual guys that I would give an A to. There were also individual guys that I would give a D to. And so that's
Pause.
it's pause. Yeah, pause. So it's tough for me to give them a whole, like I would give Martel Height an A. Martel Height was a damn good defensive back. But like I don't want to keep hating on the kid, but like once again, man, Tyson Russell was a liability. Colby Taylor was a liability. Lackey was good, but he's young, so he wasn't great, but I like what I saw out of him. Of course, I thought the secondary was phenomenal. So like it's tough, but like I'm going to go with I'm going to go with a C+ because I think there were a lot of really good guys, but I think a couple of guys were really, really, really bad and a huge liability. So I think that's what keeps me from putting them at a B. But like I said, like Martel Height was awesome. I would give him an A. CJ Taylor, A. But like Colby Taylor, Jalen Lackey, Colby Taylor, Tyson Russell, like just really diminish it for me. So I'm going to give him a C+.
I'm going C+ as well. I mean, I saw one too many 15-yard flags fly from back there. I'm sure we all know what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
There were some bright spots too. Like I thought Taylor had a pretty good year for the most part. A couple missed tackles, but you know he was bringing it. It wasn't like he was goofing around out there taking a play off. I liked what I saw to him. I think Height's brilliant. He's got a big future, but overall production this year, like the running backs with the offensive line, they didn't get a lot of help from the defensive line. That's why I'm not going lower on my grade because there was not a great pass rush. So they were having to cover people for long periods of time. So I feel confident with a C+.
I'm going to round out the trifecta and go C+ as well. So I would give the safeties more like a B or B+, and I would give the corners more like a D+. But like you said, there's large variation in the individual guys. So Jalen Lackey, Martell Height, I think that is an incredible core of cornerbacks that you have there, not even including Davis Jr., who's coming back. CJ Taylor, I thought, had a really good year. I won't say great year, but a really good year. But there are certain guys, Colby Taylor, Tyson Russell, that just got consistently beat or consistently flagged.
Yeah.
And so I think just as much to blame as the edge rushers and the rush from that defensive line not being able to get to the quarterback, I think the corners didn't cover long enough to get coverage sacks ever. So I think that mutual blame can be on both sides. So I'm giving them a C+. I think more of the blame, and it was more obvious that Vanderbilt could not get to the pass or get to the quarterback on any sort of pass rush. But the secondary has some bright spots I'm excited about for the future.
Yeah.
More than I saw out of the defensive line this year, especially the edge rushing. So I'm going to C+. C+ is all around. Now we're going to special teams. We'll start out and we'll break this up. We're going to do separate kicker and punter. So punter, we will start out with Jesse Mirko, following up Matthew Hayball. What are you giving Mirko?
A+, 100.
Blake, what are you giving Mirko?
I'm breaking my rule. Merc 30, A+. He was that damn good, guys. Like, I can't even be like, you didn't beat him. He's unfreaking believable. So shout out the Aussies. Oi, 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 oi.
Oi, 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 oi. So I said Pavia was not my highest grade with an A. That's because I'm giving Mirko an A+.
Hell yeah.
Stepping in after Hayball, who is now punting for the Saints in the NFL, after what you basically are like, there's no way you can have a guy that's even close to as good. He was better. He was better than Hayball. So A+ to Mirko. He'll be punting in the NFL. A+ is all around. Now we're going to kicker. The Brocket Launcher.
The Brocket Launcher.
We love him. We love Brock Taylor. On the season, I'll read the stats. Brock Taylor in extra points was 39 of 40. On field goals was 18 of 21 overall, 85%. Of 20 to 29 yarders, 4 of 4, 30 to 39 yarders, 5 of 6, 40 to 49 yarders, 4 of 5, and 50-plus yarders. He was 5 of 6 with a long of 57 yards. So, Trevor, what are you giving the Brocket Launcher?
You know what, dude? That's my boy. That's my dog. Brocket Launcher, A+. Like, you're going to be, I know, dude, there was this dude behind me, and he might listen to the pod. I don't know. He didn't recognize me all this season. But, like, this literally the dude that had the season tickets right behind me in between us. We're like always shit on Brock Taylor. And he's like, oh, no, let's see if he can make this one. And I'm like, dude, he's kicking at like a fucking insane clip from crazy range. Like, what are you talking about? Like, have you not watched Vanderbilt kickers for the past 10 years? Like, this dude is a godsend. What are you bitching and moaning about? And it would make me so mad, Brock. I actually turned around during the Tennessee game and I was like, do you know like what his percentage is right now? Like, he's kicking better than a lot of NFL kickers. He's like, well, and I'm like, all right, dude, fuck off. All right, Brocket Launcher, A+.
A+ from Trevor. Blake.
Our Catholic boy from Knoxville. I'm going to give him an A. It has been a long time since I've felt excited when our field goal unit has gotten out there, especially from deep. Like, I was pumped. I wanted to see some fireworks happen. Like, it's actually something that went from holy hell, we're about to shank the hell out of this thing, to we're within 60. I mean, we gotta punch your chance at this one. So I think he brought joy to the season, especially when he was getting sturdy in the locker room after the game. I thought, that was the Brocket Launcher boost for me, from A- to A. Was he's got a couple moves. Little Catholic boy shuffle. So let's give him an A.
Go an A. So Trevor's got an A+. Blake has an A. I'm going to bring the party down a little bit. And I'm going B+. Look, I know it's not a popular take. Everybody will laugh and shake their head. I get it. Brock Taylor is incredible. He's the best kicker I've seen since Gary Spear. Bright future. I'm very confident. Like Blake said, when they're inside of a 60-yard field goal. I legitimately had the thought of, they've got a chance at points now. Mm-hmm. First time in a long time. That's why he's getting a B+. That's a good grade.
It is.
However, I cannot give an A, and this is not a popular take. I love Brock Taylor. I can't give an A to a kicker that missed a field goal inside of 40 yards to lose a game this season. I can't. Is that fair? Is it unfair? Is it an incredible amount of pressure? Absolutely.
And it was pouring.
I'm not saying it is fair or unfair. I'm saying principally, I can't give an A to a kicker that missed a, 39-yard field
I
goal
think 36
or whatever it was to lose a game. But he was incredible, made some incredible kicks, B+, very much in line to have an A+ season next year. So this is no disrespect. I just can't give an A. So I'm giving a B+. So we got A+, A, B+. Blake is shaking his head. He doesn't like it.
You just got to be that guy. Every episode I'm on here, you got to say something. You can't help it.
You have to give – I can't change. I'm me, Blake. I'm wet blanket Will. Deal with it.
This is his cross to bear.
I didn't say we were even going to do this. Let's give grades to the overall season. Overall season grades.
Before we do that, I got to give a grade to my dog, long snapper Julian Ashby.
Okay.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Okay. Yeah, let's do special teams overall. Okay, long snappers, returners. Let's do
Martell.
that.
Yeah, A+.
A+.
A.
Blake.
Yeah, A+. I'll give him an
I'm
A+.
going A. I'm not A+, but I'm an A.
Oh,
and
the
reason I'm not A+, I got to get it out, Blake, before I forget. Let Junior return more kicks. I do agree with that. Yeah.
None
of my reasons are going to be because of players. Let him return more kicks, number one. And number two, Brock Taylor can clearly kick the ball into the end zone. Stop trying to mess around with kicking it short, getting 5 to 8 yards of field position. Just kick it into the end zone.
Mm-hmm.
Negative things are happening more. So that's why I'm not giving it an A+, because I have issues with those specific things.
Fair.
Overall, special teams is great, but I'm giving him an A. Blake, what were you saying?
I'd give him an A. I think Julian Ashby is a great dude. He did some charity thing the other day, so shout out him, putting up good causes. He seems like a good guy to grab a beer with. So when I'm in Nashville next, I usually don't party with special teamers, but I'll make an exception for you, big dog.
See, that's all we party with is special teamers.
The special teamers love TDR, and we love the special teamers.
We're a special teams pod.
We love the special teams and the walk-ons.
There we go.
Because that's like what TDR is. It's like the dudes that don't get looks, but the dudes just grind their balls off.
There we go. All right, grind our balls off. So now let's get to full season grades. So overall, season as a whole, Trevor, what do you got?
A.
All right.
They exceeded expectations in every fashion. A.
Yeah, I mean, you don't beat Alabama and not get an A. What are we doing here, Will? What are you going to say, C, because someone missed a field goal? Oh, he missed it. I can't do it. It hurts. Just give it an A.
They gave an A. I'm going A-.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
I'm still giving an A. You beat Alabama. You're not falling below. You beat Alabama and have a winning season. You're not getting below an A from me. The reason they are getting an A- and not an A+, actually, there's one game. And it's not the one Brock Taylor missed the field goal on.
Yeah.
I was there. Literally, this season would be an A+. Just beat Georgia State.
Yeah.
I can't give anything above an A-. I actually had thought about giving a B+, but I can't do it for how much they exceeded expectations. But no, it's not. It is truly because each week is an individual exam, you could say.
Yeah.
And that is supposed to be like a gimme 100 on that Georgia State game. And I was there. Holy hell. That was the one game, looking back, I can wrap my brain around every performance, even the Alabama win. Mm-hmm. I can wrap my brain around what I saw. I still can't wrap my brain around that Georgia State performance. It looked like a different team. So I'm going A-, A-. Overall, an incredible season with
overall
incredible
4.0 GPA.
Incredible, not quite.
We all gave A's.
We all gave A's, but it depends on if they're calculating A- and different things. But yeah, likely a 4.
Oh.
But
well, this is an AP class, so we're like
we're
AP
like
A- is like 5.0, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got that Pat and Robin at GPA.
There we go. An incredible season, incredible memories. Thank you to everyone from the new Rivals board and our new TDR site for tuning in to your first episode of TDR. If this is not your first episode and you've been listening to us for a long time, thank you for continuing to listen to us. Thank you for putting up with us. And thank you for dealing with us during this transitory period. So, Trevor, Blake, either of you have anything you want to add on episode 297 before we close out a very long episode on this Monday evening?
It's just crazy that, like, football season's over and I'm sad it's over. That's such a weird feeling for me. Normally I'm like, man, thank God. But like this year, I'm like, damn, it's over. What a wild time.
We were so pissed off last year. Just listening to our voices and seeing our demeanors on this last year. Everyone was mad. We were throwing D's. It was funny. We were laughing to escape from crying. And now look at us. We own the whole state of Alabama. I mean, who's got it better than us? Who's got it better than us?
Nobody. Feels like the perfect way to end it.
Beautiful.
So for myself, Will Byram, my co-host Trevor Shulin, and our very special guest and TDR staff member Blake Fromang, this has been episode 297 of the Dore Report, powered by 615 Collect.